Sammy, is is it true? Is it possible? Is this real? Are we back?
No,
Whoa!
I'm a virus in your computer.
Oh shit! Fuck yeah! No. Well, I mean, if that's the case, though, hey, I will take any opportunity or reason to finally be back here with you, my friend. It's been a little bit, you guys. Hey, acolytes, apprentices, welcome back to the Arcane Archive. It has been a minute, actually, a hot minute. Apologies for the unplanned sabbatical, so to speak, that we kind of took. We had a little bit of technical difficulties over here in the archive.
My
Uh,
computer committed seppuku in front of me
yeah, it's
in broad daylight. Somehow I didn't know it could do that. It just like pulled a knife out and just ran it across its motherboard and
yeah.
grabbed its motherboard and CPU.
Ooh, yeah, it was
Thank God it wasn't the graphics card.
yeah, that still survived at the very least because the
So
rest of that was a
instead
heavy
of
loss.
buying one thing that costs too much money, I bought two things
Two.
that together cost about the same.
And you know what? Hey, more bang for your buck, I guess technically we could say. But we're glad to be back here, because it's been a minute. Yeah, it took Sammy a little bit of time to kind of get back up to snuff,
Yeah,
so we
sorry
could get
guys.
here. So we took a little bit of a vacay, I guess you could say. But we're glad to be back. Hopefully you guys are too to see us. And we do today. What are we doing today, Sammy? As a bit of an homage to the old days.
Well, that's right. We're back here to cringe at some stories because it's been too long.
Oh
We're doing
yeah.
a Cautionary Chronicles yet again.
Cautionary
I
Chronicles.
think something I've noticed about this whole not having a computer thing is I miss my buddy Adam over here,
Right?
who I get
Ah,
to talk shit about other people with on the internet. Which I'll ideally like we don't talk too much shit because like maybe people are learning or people are getting better.
it's supposed to be more educational, of course, but sometimes there is that
But
there is a
also
certain line that's crossed where it's
but I
like
but I kind of also a little
the
bit.
cringe is too much for us to resist, and we gotta just
There's a
roast
part of
some
me
motherfuckers a
there's a
little
part
bit.
of me that's like, oh well, I could a little bit.
Just a smidge. Hey, you know what? A little bit of roasting can help people to learn and grow. You know what I mean? It's all it is just constructive critique at the end of the day. We're not trying to be harmful or hurtful or destructive. No, 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 no. It is all in the pursuit of growth, of construction. You know what I mean? Because that is what it is meant to do. You got to be able to take a little bit of criticism constructively and reasonably and fairly, of course. There is a difference between, as I just stated, destructive criticism and critiquing and constructive criticism and critiquing. Because and it is a fine line because obviously people's feelings and they're going to choose to feel how they feel, of course, and we can't control that. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, me and Sam, maybe we should start putting like a disclaimer just to be like, hey, we take no responsibility for yada 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 whatever. But me and Sam, we are here to just be honest with you guys, to have upfront, transparent conversation and communication about our thoughts. And these again, the disclaimer can be absolutely, these are always 100% like our thoughts and opinions when we speak about certain topics or subjects that are, again, inherently more subjective. You know what I mean? It is a thing where some things, sure, there is just blatant, straight up, cold hard facts that you kind of have to acknowledge. And then other things that maybe are a little bit more ambiguous, it's like, well, that is more so our personal feelings and opinions. And so hopefully everybody understands that and nobody gets like, legitimately hurt or whatever, unless of course you are like one of those super shitty, fucked up those guys, neckbeards and incels or whatever. You guys have some legitimate problems and issues that you need some help with, and if you're not willing to kind of do that yourself, you can then go fuck yourselves. I'm sorry to say it, not sorry to say it, as it is. You know what I mean? But with that being the case, we are so happy to be back with you. Got quite, in my opinion, the slew of some very interesting stories for you today, as we always do our best to provide. But I feel like today is extra special. Maybe not least of which because we're coming back after such a long time away. But we hope that you guys do very much enjoy. We hope that it generates some much needed buzz and conversation and discussion. Of course, as we say, we at the Arcane Archive, we do not advocate for any kind of like internet bullying or attacking or, bigotry, bias, any of the isms that, have no real place to be put in any kind of civil, logical, reasonable conversation discussion. Okay, so absolutely not. But with that being the case, as always, if you like what we're doing here and you're happy to see us back, hell, go ahead and drop us a like real quick down below. You know what I mean? Somewhere here, and the like button, as well as comment down below your thoughts and everything. If you can't think of anything to say, just say like, "Welcome back to the Arcane Archive" for us. Subscribe, share the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out when we are here, that we're coming back and everything. Hopefully, we won't have to take as long of a break again, or any break for that matter, for a while now that Sammy's equipment is all back up to snuff. But with that being said, I believe that's all the housekeeping that we have. Let's go ahead and kick off today's lesson, shall we? First story that we have for you guys today upon our glorious return is called "The DM Dropped the Ball Right at the End of My First Campaign" by Strange Grade 1672. Hi, all. This is my first time posting here. Really quick, there is a bigotry warning tag for anybody as a heads up. I have been thinking about getting this off my chest for a while because I've been binging Crispy's Tavern on YouTube. Yo, shout out to Crispy's Tavern. Great, great, great channel. And I just keep thinking about how frustrating and disappointing this situation was when it occurred, and all of the annoying drama that ended up surrounding it. Now, the flare warning isn't like super, super bad, but definitely a little subtle part of the story, so keep that in mind going forward if you do decide to stay tuned and stick in. So, in the late 2010s, I joined my first ever D&D campaign with a couple of friends of mine from work. And one of those people was the GM, who also invited two other of their friends to play with us. I was super excited to learn how to play and create and build. I ended up making a halfling rogue that I really loved a lot. And despite getting us into a bunch of ridiculous shenanigans, one of our first sessions, he started a prison riot with high-level guards when I panicked after a failed persuasion roll and had him punch one of them. Interesting decision. Our group was really solid. Our GM kept things really fun with a good balance of both RP and combat, and following both actual rules as well as mixing in Rule of Cool here and there where it made sense. We love that! Balance, students, in all aspects. Balance and moderation. 100% advocate for that. Now, even through COVID, we still were able to continue to playing sessions online and had a great time with it. Unfortunately, as restrictions started to slowly ease, I began to clash more and more with the GM out of game due to me deconstructing from a religion that the GM was still a part of. I had gotten more open about my queerness after meeting her, but I still had a lot of internalized shame around being queer and felt like I had to capitulate to other people and not bring it up if I could help it so that I wouldn't make anyone uncomfortable. However, I had grown a bit more of a spine and gotten far more confident in myself and my identity through lockdown and therapy, and that was causing friction between me and the GM. The GM wasn't outright in your face homophobic or anything, but they had made some comments to me about me being sapphic that had rubbed me the wrong way. And when I originally made my character, they didn't want me to have a homosexual character because they didn't want to roleplay any NPCs my character might want to romance. Even when I literally told them that I'd be fine with the whole, dead lover trope, so that made me question if that was even her reasoning for it at all, but okay. So it was totally fine for her, however, to have side NPCs that she mentioned were gay and married, question mark. And other PCs had love interests, so it wasn't that she wasn't okay with role-playing romance. So honestly, I'm not really sure. Something about it all just didn't pass the smell test for me. Understandable, understandable. There might be some things there going on. Between the weirdness around queerness, I will say I love the alliteration there, OP, very well done, and the fact I had a very difficult time hearing about her continuing experiences in the church. It was deeply embedded in her daily life at that point, so it was kind of impossible to talk with her without it coming up at some point. That's always a bit of a... And that she had a difficult time hearing about me pointing out hypocrisy and flaws in doctrines and teachings. Our friendship was clearly kind of on its way out. Oh man, this seems to kind of be taking a real bad left turn here.
It sounds like you have two people who are just going to have a differing of opinions, and neither of them can shut up about it.
Yeah, like it's like again, it's perfectly fine and okay to have your own personal thoughts, opinions, and feelings on whatever subject, but there is also kind of a time and a place to talk about it, and it's a good idea to kind of like recognize, okay, is this really relevant for this situation? Like, is this really like again? Don't get me wrong, I'm like for both parties, but let's keep reading and see kind of how it goes. Um, which it is what it is. But we were so close to the end of this year's long campaign, and I really wanted to see it through to the end. So I just kind of bit my tongue as much as I could and focused on playing, which I had a good time doing. See, yeah, that makes sense. That's what you're there for. And then our long-awaited final session came, and oh boy, did I not know what I was getting myself into when I walked into her house for the last time. So I showed up expecting to meet up with the GM and the remaining two other players besides myself that made it to the final session, and was surprised to find another person there, a mutual friend of the GM and I, and as well one of the players who was in my own campaign that I was GMing. Now, the GM said that he was there to co-GM for the final boss fight, but hadn't given any of us a heads up about it. But, I shrugged it off because at least it was someone we all knew and were comfortable with, and it made sense that a big boss fight, possibly with multiple enemies, might benefit from having a second GM on hand to manage things. Sure. The session starts, and it is revealed that the first friendly NPC we ever met has been the BBEG the whole time, and got a hold of this MacGuffin staff so she could end the world and remake it or something like that. This was a few years ago now, so I don't really remember all the details, and they honestly weren't that memorable to begin with. Okay. While the reveal was fun, it just didn't really hit for me? Now, we saw that NPC on and off again the whole campaign, but I personally just never got close enough to care about her too much. And since this was the final battle, I guess I was just expecting something a little more? But hey, everybody seemed to be having a good time, and I didn't want to be the mood killer, so I put my all into the combat and RP. And then GM's boyfriend randomly shows up in the middle of the session. We had been given no prior warning this guy would be there, and none of us had ever met him before this. He
Hmm.
wasn't there to co-GM or play or anything having to do with the game either. He didn't even sit at the table and watch us play. He was just in the room randomly interjecting with flirts to our GM or playing on his phone or talking to GM's mom. The co-GM situation was one thing, but the boyfriend suddenly being there made me really annoyed and uncomfortable. I just wanted to enjoy this final game with the original group without some rando being there. Even worse, a rando that was actively distracting the GM from, GMing. Additionally, while the GM was describing a bloody scene, she suddenly stops and says in this weird baby voice to her boyfriend to not listen, honey, because I guess he was sensitive to this stuff. Again, I feel a prickle of irritation because why would the GM invite him if he couldn't handle what we were playing slash doing? Anytime the GM swore, she would also apologize to him and replace it with something like frick instead. It was just so weird and came off like she was infantilizing him. Now, as the session wore on, she eventually fully ended up abandoning the fight to go and sit with him and flirt while the co-GM ran and finished the encounter. I was simmering with rage at the whole thing, but I grit my teeth since it was all almost over anyway. We described our short epilogues of where our characters would go and what they would do after everything ended. And then I hightailed it out of there as fast as I could and never looked back. I never spoke with the GM after that. I was immensely disappointed in how the session went, and while one of the other party members also expressed some dissatisfaction, I think that I was the most upset of everyone there. I was really mad that the GM didn't seem to care to give the group her full attention for the final encounter and just basically offloaded the job onto co-GM. And also invited someone who was effectively a total stranger to the rest of us to just loiter around while our group tried to finish off our campaign with a bang. Really, in the end though, the ending was more like a sad wet belly flop. To this day,
Uh,
this is the only campaign I have played through till the end. My other games have either fizzled out or never made it past one or two sessions. which is really unfortunate because I love making characters with interesting backstories and RPing with other people's characters so much. And having wacky adventures with that fun element of chance that can change things in an instant, it's just, I don't know. It just sucks that the one time I finally completed a campaign, it ended so shittily. The positives of this story are the moments we had on the journey to the end of the campaign, you know? There were so many amazing and hilarious moments, despite all the hiccups between me and the GM. I still look back on those moments very fondly, at least. I also learned a lot about being a good player, GM, and friend from these situations, and, well, think that I've grown a lot since then. I just wanted to vent about this experience since, I haven't gotten to really get everything out there since it happened. It's not the most horrific thing ever, of course, but it definitely was a big letdown for me. TLDR, GM makes co-GM run the final combat encounter of the campaign while she infantilizes and flirts with her boyfriend, who none of us knew in the corner. In post. So, right off the bat, what do you think about this story, Sammy?
I this just sounds like people who really don't like each other. As sad as that sounds. Like I don't not to be like mean, but it seemed very much that how do I put it? Two people of very differing opinions who can't seem to have a friendship outside of I don't know, keeping that they can't like keep it to themselves almost.
Yeah, yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Like, so right off the bat for me, like, I will say, OP, like, I feel like you might be making the whole boyfriend thing a little bit too far. Like, I think it might be focusing on that too much. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong. Here's the thing. I will say I 100% agree and empathize with you about the whole like ending of the campaign just kind of being like a wet belly flop. I have 100% experienced that myself a number of times for campaigns. Like, ironically, I have technically, quote unquote, finished a number of campaigns in my career playing, TTRPGs. Not all of them, though, was what I would call like truly good or satisfying endings. You know what I mean? Like, I've had a few of those where it is very disappointing, and that does really suck. Like, especially if there were campaigns that you played for an extended period of time, right? You dedicated a lot of time, energy, and everything, building up a lot of stuff, and then the ending just kind of falls flat. Like that does not feel good. Um, and so I
No.
completely understand and can relate to that disappointment for sure. Uh, and even on some level, I do understand, like, your thing about, oh, it's a little annoying for the GM to be, or for the GM to have her boyfriend there that you didn't necessarily know. But I mean, at the same
Yeah,
token,
that's a weird I don't get that.
I mean, here's the thing. It is her boyfriend. She invited him. It is a little, annoying to be like, he's not even there to participate or even really like maybe not even participate because that would be weird too, but to even like watch the game, right? And in fact, he's actually kind of becoming more of a distraction than anything else. And I do say 100% I agree that the fact that the GM just basically ditched the finale to go and, screw around with her boyfriend or whatever, like that is shitty. 100%. That is like there is no real excuse for that whatsoever. Um but I will say, like, I do think the things you highlighted with the boyfriend, though, being there, it's like, yeah, he's there. But obviously, he's probably going to want to interact with the girlfriend a little bit or whatever. Like, I don't know if during your games, like, are you guys, like, super serious the entire time? Like, you guys never break character and interact with each other as just, like, players rather than in character? Like, I don't know if that's the case. Because like I don't know about you, Sam. Like in any game I've been a part of, like that does happen, like plenty, where people do still interact as players and people, and not just in character. So I mean, like depending on how the boyfriend was interacting or flirting with the girlfriend, like it may not necessarily be disruptive to a truly disruptive way. Like it just felt like OP you were coming across a little bit biased towards the boyfriend for some reason, even though you never met them. Like it seemed like yeah, it's like, okay, I get you wanted to be there with just your friends and do this whole thing without a rando, but it's like I don't think it'd be that big of a deal so long as he wasn't being truly obnoxious or disruptive. You know what I mean? It felt like you maybe just a bit biased towards him, unfairly
Yeah.
so. Um, as
Yeah, that's weird.
for yeah, like as for, both you and the GM's differing beliefs and opinions and stuff, like a similar thing of like, you both are entitled to your thoughts and opinions, right? I'm not sure exactly what the GM's full thing, because you said to yourself that apparently they're not like straight in your face homophobic, but due to her connection to like her church or religion, she might kind of have some, distasteful views or here or there, especially in regards to where you're at and stuff. And, it's like that shit definitely sucks. Like, again, though, it seemed like you guys were at least previously perfectly capable and willing to like, hang out and stuff. And as long as I guess you weren't being obnoxious yourself about stuff, like I don't really see why that had to come in and start messing with the game at all.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
hate to be that way, but it also just seems like these people weren't going to get along by the end of it either way.
okay, well, I mean, I guess my question would just be like, why? Like, because apparently they got along pretty damn well at the start, but it was apparently just as OP, I guess, was beginning to acknowledge and really more come into their queerness and everything that apparently things started to degrade. But I guess like I'm wondering, I'm like, well, but why was that the case? Like, is it like it could, I guess, very well be that the GM was just so heavily in her, you know, religious doctrine or whatever that it was starting to. But then again, apparently OP says that the GM was perfectly fine having homosexual NPCs and characters in their world and game who were also married and everything. So, I mean, I guess, again, that's why I'm a little confused because it's like apparently they weren't necessarily straight up homophobic and everyone else seemingly had a pretty decent time. Um,
Yeah, that's very strange.
I don't know. There just seems to be like a lot of contradictory statements here or there, and I don't really understand like what was the smoking gun, so to speak, right? Like what was the actual turning point? Like what started to switch things up? Because it's like because also, I mean, I guess it would depend too. Because OP, you also said that you started to kind of try to point out the hypocrisy and the inherent flaws and things of her religion and beliefs and stuff like that, and while I'm gonna be honest with you, like I understand that. Don't get me wrong. I also I think it's maybe just part of my personal touch of autism, where it's like if I hear or see something that's just either hypocritical, contradictory, or just completely and utterly nonsensical, I'm like I do have a desire to be like that doesn't make sense. Like that seems that doesn't make sense. But I also do over time experience understand like a person. There are certain things that maybe don't make sense to certain people, but that doesn't automatically mean that they just don't make sense at all? And again, I
Yeah.
don't know what I'm not entirely sure which religion. I have obviously some theories, but I'm not gonna make any judgments or assumptions of like what religion or whatever that the GM is a part of. And specifically what you guys were talking about, because you haven't listed any specifics here, so I'm not gonna jump to any conclusions myself. But I don't know. It seems like maybe the both of you were kind of, and here's the thing. If the GM was kind of making comments and kind of going aggro at you due to you just working through your own personal things and stuff, you know what I mean? That 100% is effed up. And I 100% would not blame you for defending yourself and, pointing out fallacies or contradictions in her thing that she's trying to base whatever she might be throwing at you.
Yeah, like that, it doesn't help anyone to just.
Yeah.
I think this is also just a good instance of like your viewpoints don't necessarily have to rule your normal life. Obviously, like if she's
Or
homophobic, if this woman's like actually homophobic and you're gay, yeah, then I kind of understand being like, yeah, this isn't gonna work for me.
yeah, but it's also yeah, but it's like you probably should have left sooner then. Like if it was truly bad, because you said apparently the game wasn't bad. Like there wasn't like she wasn't necessarily like attacking you or you know focus firing you or like even like hurting you in game or anything like that. It's apparently just you guys had like differing views because again, she apparently was still including queerness and homosexuality and stuff in her game. So she wasn't, I guess, against that. So yeah, I don't know. Let's take a look at some of the comments too down below. Um, Top voted comment says, "I'd be crushed for that to be the end of the campaign. I hope you one day get to replace that memory with an epic end to another campaign." 100%. Um, Another one says, like, that sucks. Not the worst GM by our metric, but man, that's disappointing. Hope you find a table that you can game in, OP. Yeah, it's like yeah, I don't know. It was I feel like we're just missing maybe important context to really have the best understanding of what happened and went down, and that's fair. I mean, it's been a little bit of time for OP as well since they've, played. I mean, hell, it said like what's the 2010s, so it's like, anywhere between like 6 to 15 years, like, uh who knows? Like, overall, like, I do hope OP though that like, because it does suck that you haven't been able to finish any other games at that point. Again, I also know what that's like too. I've been in many games that also have just fizzled out, right? Um, and it's always a shitty thing because yeah, you'd love to be able to have a more long form, like you said. I love the fact that you seem to be super down for like RPing and building up like real stories and connections with your fellow players and the NPCs and your character. Like I definitely love that. And I also like commenter Muni 17th best fighter. I do hope that you're able to find a campaign where you can truly build up those memories, those experiences, and get the real satisfying ending that you really want and deserve. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, this whole thing, like I also hope that your personal journey has yielded even more, has borne fruit even more. Yielded great results where you become much more confident and secure in yourself and your queerness and everything. Like I hope that that's gone well. And that something like this it's just unfortunate, like it really is, because especially when it seems like everything was going really great at the start and then it kind of just poofed at the end. It's always terrible.
it's
um
not fun.
no, it's not a great feeling. It really isn't. I've been there and it's not awesome. But with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next story of the day. Sammy, take it away.
All right, it's my turn.
Yes sir,
I
let's see
have a
what you
little bit of
got,
a
buddy.
little bit of a long one.
I mean, we they're all pretty long today. This one though is pretty extended though.
It's called "Surviving the Railroad Until It All Imploded."
Ooh.
I'd like to begin by saying I mean no personal attack against the DM or anyone else. In case she or anyone else in this story ever reads this, for all I know, most of the players disagree with me, and this is just my feelings. I'll admit when I've done wrong as well. This is simply a recounting of the campaign I played in months ago, and what I felt had gone wrong. Might be wrong on certain details here and there, but the core of the story is true. I'm friends with most people in this story then and now. It is simply a tale of miscommunication and stubbornness. I'm mostly writing this to vent and figured I'd post it if anyone wished to read it, as long as they had the time. Starting as a brand new D&D group in college, several characters were added and drifted away as the campaign went on, but I'll state the classes of relevant characters as they come up. Our campaign took place in a series of islands in the sky, based around the elements of air, fire, water, earth, and void.
Ooh.
That's not an element. After a cataclysmic
I don't know,
event began
Sammy. Kingdom
occurring,
Hearts 2 would beg to differ.
I hate you. Next, you're gonna talk to me about Kingdom Hearts 1.5 times 3/4 decoding or
Dream
whatever
drop
fuck.
distance, overture times 1075 million times dream drop distance.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
358 days
Um,
over two.
yeah, 358 days over two is my favorite part. After a cataclysmic event began occurring that caused the islands to shatter and drift apart, our characters were identified somehow as the cause of all this, and assigned to find magic gems from each island to pull it all back together. The innkeeper, by the name of Norjar, who assigns us to this quest, joins up to assist us in finding the gems. And he's a level 20 druid who can shapeshift into an ancient gold dragon.
Dope, dope. We love
To be
those.
fair, there is
Yeah,
a
he,
narrative.
he can
Yeah,
kinda.
to be fair, there is a narrative reason for this particular DMPC to be so close to us. He later turns out to be the actual BBEG of the journey who
Oh,
caused the
hey, look at
recent
we got two for
cataclysm.
two. That's two now. All right.
Who's sending us specifically on this quest primarily for shits and giggles. Evil through and through. He's with us primarily so he can rub it in our faces when he takes the gems from under our noses before the climax of the campaign. But the thing is, Norjar made things so easy for us. More than a few combats we experienced were just quickly shoved under the rug with the explanation of Norjar immediately killed all the enemies, or Norjar just healed you guys all the way back to full anyway. It never felt like there was any tension when he was with us, and I was glad when he wasn't there, which thankfully lightened up the further the game went on. He did poorly as an evil to the core type villain as well. So many roleplay interactions across the campaign quickly ended with him getting depressed and or crying, or just immediately curb stomping anyone for getting too close to him. Any attachment to him, at least for me, was more ironic for how twinky he was in his art, which everyone shared in. The Wind Islands. Our first mission, we had to travel to this high up palace that banned magic users in order to search for the Wind Gem, held by the tyrannical queen. This location was notable for how restrictive it all was. Not only were we banned from any equipment, items, and magic, a barrier over the whole castle forced everyone into being humans. It's a fun idea, but forcing characters to abandon their niches massively reduced how much any of us could do, especially a majority caster party. We were forced to try and play nice with the nobles of the castle to try and get what we wanted, who were, while they were being extremely condescending towards us the entire time and threatened execution at the faintest whiff of any resistance. After getting thrown in prison for a scripted event in the form of the wind gem magically showing up in one of our pockets, parentheses Norjar, we spent a long time being stuck in prison, unable to literally do anything on account of having nothing with and all the impossible checks. After our warlock, whose patron was secretly Norjar, made a deal to get us out, and us getting in a boss fight with her in the process, which wasn't much of a fun on account of being unable to fulfill our niches, since we were all now humans with short swords and shields. I made a suggestion to the DM offset out of session after we talked about where the story was heading, advising on Norjar saving us with bangles that undo the magic and having a climactic boss fight against the queen. The next session began with my suggestion of Norjar saving us and giving us the bangles, restoring our capabilities, and giving us renewed hope. And then we quickly get hand waved through the castle with the usual Norjar excuse of him doing all the work and killing everything slash healing us. When one of us goes to check on the queen, she was already bleeding out and dying from somebody else. The island just doesn't get a climactic boss. On to the next isle.
Oh,
Yeah, you can see where this is heading, huh?
oh no. Is this gonna be the theme for today's video? Is just supreme monumental disappointment and
It's
blue
just a lot of
balls?
it's a lot of
Is
it's a
it's just
lot of
blue ball? We got a blue ball
Adam.
video for
Adam,
sale?
I didn't tell you, but the theme of this episode is edging, but there's no end.
Ah! Oh God!
Welcome back. Welcome back to hell. I'm here with you.
Ah! Wow! What a reunion! What a welcome! What a homecoming this is. Continue,
All right,
please.
now we're at the Fire Islands.
Oh joy!
This section started off with a fun dude bro type of king fighting off vicious cultists, and Norjar taking a break for himself at the kingdom, getting him away from us. But when the baby prince gets kidnapped as a sacrifice and we try to track him down to the cult's base, it slips. While we were fighting, each of us gets knocked out from a knock to the noggin instantly, no damage or save, and we wake up in cages. We're able to get some
Oh.
good rolls, get our gear back, and open our cages, even save the prince on that's stuck to the ceiling on the way out of our room. We navigate the cult's maze and manage to get back to the entrance, but then get intercepted by the cult's leader and followers. We had a successful battle, but then the prince gets stolen literally out of our arms, followed by a drug attack. Those who failed their con saves were knocked out instantly, while those who saved or were immune to poison got met with a proposition from the cult leader, who immediately took our knocked out sorcerer as a hostage. Take the cult's syringes and willingly knock yourselves out, or the sorcerer dies. And the DM made it very clear out of character that if we tried to scare off the cult leader or do anything to get him away from her, he would just fumble with his blade and instantly kill the sorcerer anyway. So because none of us were willing to let a party member die when she couldn't do anything about it, we injected ourselves and were knocked out anyway.
Oh,
We awoke in cages again over boiling lava, and were
God.
forced to watch from a distance as the prince was ritually sacrificed via guillotine. As we
Wow.
strategized the escape, the DM interjected out of character to let us know that any attempt to escape the cages or save the prince would just kill the prince faster, letting us know that the prince had to die here for the story.
Nope.
This
No.
this prompted an argument as I accused this whole situation of railroading. And then the DM said this had to happen this way for narrative political reasons. Um, as to why there's going to be lots of ash and war at the Earth Island later in the story. Oh god. We ultimately resolve this by letting her quickly narrate the aftermath of the sacrifice and recovering the fire gem off screen. Oh no.
Oh, God.
The Water Islands.
No.
No notes here. Actually, fun area, fun characters, fun interactions, and a good boss fight against Scylla herself. This section here is mainly for consistency. I think I might game a
Huh.
little bit. I think I
You
might
know? Wow. That.
just a touch.
Wait a minute.
Um.
That was huge
Oh, sorry,
whiplash.
sorry, sorry. Right underneath, there's the Earth Islands.
Ah.
Yeah. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. For context, this session begins with us already knowing the whole twist with Norjar. Thanks to some very lucky natural 20s when poking around his office, which led him to ditching us on the island.
Honestly, gotta love the nat 20 clutch
We
moments,
still
man. When
had
they...
to hunt the Earth Gem since we couldn't fix the world without it. But props to DM for letting that shit in the story happen unexpectedly like that.
He finally let them do a little. He threw a little bit of a curveball, a little bit of a wrench, right? Wasn't all. I guess it wasn't all just a straight railroad. You know, a little bit of curves here. I guess.
Which yeah, I love that. I love how you're railroading everything else, but like the major uh-oh oopsie
But let's
twist gets revealed and you're just like, all right, sure.
but let's be honest. He probably did it exactly because he wanted the props or one of the thing of being like, oh yeah, you guys didn't realize that Norjar has been the evildoer all along.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
And it's like,
Um,
no, we all hated him anyway. This is not really like this is
I love this.
no.
We tromp our way through the ashen fields towards the kingdom's capital. And mind you, the whole Fire Kingdom at war with the Earth Kingdom thing never actually seemed to affect us besides scenery description. Along the way, based on good rolls, we witnessed fragments of Nordr's backstory and how he came to be this way, which, as I mentioned earlier, falls flat for what's supposed to be an entertainingly evil villain, since his backstory is all about his dead wife and daughters, and his efforts to get them back slash avenge them, and I feel like there's a disconnect in there somewhere. I know I shouldn't hold this against someone who does suffer from depression and such, but the DM's monotone voice throughout these flashbacks, especially the later ones where we get them rapid fire through lore dumps, made it hard to stay invested. I know that's a cruel thing to say, but I struggle to think of a kinder way to phrase it. Once we reach the Earth Kingdom's capital proper, we're put through combat trials to receive the Earth Gem we've been looking for. Starting with a round of swapped around character sheets with each other, this wasn't a very fun challenge since we weren't used to the sheets that weren't our own. But the DM saw that and fixed everyone after the first round. The next rounds were strenuous, with the DM not quite understanding CR calculations and us getting poor rolls, but with some free full restores from a Dwarven King in the middle of combat. We won the day and our gem. So it sounds like you would have failed, but then they just said, okay,
I
actually,
mean,
you'll
here's the
pass
thing.
anyway.
I personally am a fan and an arbitrator, I would say, for I think it's okay to give your players like some instant heal, revive, long rest bullshit or whatever sometimes. You know what I mean? If you are in like a particularly like deadly dungeon and because for me, I like prepping really strong, powerful monsters and enemies. You know what I mean? And I want it to be fun and fair because I do also like being able to throw strong shit at my players while also giving them a legitimate chance to win. You know what I mean? So it's like, yo, if you're going through like a huge battle and shit, sometimes yeah, throw them like an instant long rest potion, but maybe it has like some detrimental effects. You know what I mean? Like if you take one, maybe you'll get like one level of exhaustion or something. You know what I mean? Or something like that, where it's like, you get your full long rest, but then there is some kind of detrimental effect or whatever. Like, you'll for the next five turns or something, you'll have disadvantage on certain skill checks or something like that. I don't know, something that still gives them the ability to choose and strategize, so they're not just always. Because that's the one thing about D&D is like, oh, you're going through maybe a dungeon or just like a multi-step kind of encounter or fight, and you're like, okay, well, I wanna hoard, or I wanna save all of my best shit or my cool shit for when I really need it. And depending on just how the dice roll, sometimes like you'll either just steamroll through everything without even having a chance to use your cool shit, really. Excuse me, or you know, you have to use your cool shit because you have really shitty stuff, and then even then, when you use your cool shit, nothing cool really happens, or something fucks up anyways, and it's like. So I like to let my players feel, and I personally don't mind it to be able to be like, yeah, use your abilities because that's cool. That's why you have them. Have the opportunity to do that. There should be some legitimate strategy to it, of course, because you don't know for certain if you'll get, some revives or some Deus Ex Machina bullshit or whatever. But I don't hate it when when GMs can do that and utilize it reasonably and fairly. My
Yeah,
personal opinion. I think that's good. I like that kind of stuff.
sure. Yeah, everything's really cool.
Just looking for the silver linings, here. I think the Void Islands were next though, right?
Well, yes. We are on to the Void Islands. It's official. We're here. The final session, which we attempted to do all in one sitting, and we did in a sense. We started a session in the Earth Kingdom in an airship, intending to reach the Void Islands castle, where we knew Norjar was currently in wait. We made plans, strategizing for familiars to send out and scout, and how to handle Norjar when we saw him. All the while, the DM was zoning out on a gotcha game so we could talk, inherently to not metagame on our plans. This could have its benefits, of course, but it also had its downsides, one of which became immediately obvious. Once we sat down on the ground near the castle and set up, we were quickly dragged through a portal to an alternate universe against our character's will, and all the dungeon crawling preparation we made for the castle was rendered useless. We then spent the next hour jumping between different parallel universes of the game's world, which the DM was excited for and had made preparations for quite a while. We all submitted 3 universes each the weeks before
That's cool.
about possible bad futures for our characters, and the DM added those to her already high count, making I think like 70 or so alternate universes.
Damn.
Unfortunately for all our hard work, it didn't really land.
Oh.
First, we only made it through like 3 different universes before we reached Norjar.
Oh.
That was mainly because we realized it would have been playing we would have been playing until past midnight if we tried to do them all because it took like 15 to 20 minutes to get through the ones we had. Secondly, none of the ones we did go through were really interesting for our characters to see. One where a rebel princess of the Water Kingdom was married to one of our party members, just some marital jokes, not much else. Next was a world where all the islands were at war with each other. Sounds interesting, but our characters had little reason to be involved in the war at all. And it felt really like something more for the DM's hypotheticals and world lore than us, the players. The third was a world where Norjar wasn't evil at all and still had a living family, but still wound up useless since Norjar refused to help us in any way, shape, or form, whether it be help or even just advice. Granted, we did roll on a table for all 3 of these worlds, but I feel the list could have been better curated to the ones the party would definitely be invested in, like the ones we made about our possible futures. Third, there was a large disconnect between what the players wanted and the characters wanted that was difficult to resolve. Okay.
Okay.
I um while we the players were interested in what the DM had cooked up with the alternate worlds and such, but the characters had no reason to care here. It's not like this was presented as a labyrinth we had to traverse to reach the end. It was presented as a magical trap that was flinging us through worlds. And when we, the characters, were focused on finding a way out as quickly as possible, the DM silently got quite upset about that.
I see.
Eventually, after
Okay.
world number 3, we made it back to our proper universe. And thanks to a betrayal from our warlock, immediately found ourselves leaving the portal to getting chained up against the wall of a cell in an instant. After convincing the warlock to come back to our side again, awesome, the final fight began against our BBEG Norjar, and it was the most miserable slog I've ever experienced. Our party, which was around level 9, had to go up against a level 20 druid, followed up by an ancient gold dragon. We didn't have any items, or powers, or anything that would let us weaken the phases or anything. We had to use what we had on our sheets, and that was it. What followed was what felt like 2 hours, maybe more, of dice rolls, legendary actions, our summons rolls, dying desperately, trying desperately to get a good hit on this demigod, which wasn't helped by the DM's 7 nat 20s in a row during this fight. No, she wasn't cheating, we checked. It was just ridiculous.
Wow.
Very late into the night, half of us were sitting on the floor to make ourselves more comfortable, quarters health left with only 3 quarters health left on the dragon, who had reduced damage to avoid killing us faster, but still had tons of health, typical of ancients. I could tell the air around us was miserable. No one was having fun anymore, not even the DM. The air was getting tense. I attempted to try and save the evening, unfortunately to a forceful degree. I suggested retroactively making Norjar an adult dragon, just lowering the HP, even offering to just take over running the encounter until Norjar was down. I know this was a mistake in retrospect. Anything to make this all go faster and get smiles back on people's faces. This unfortunately had the opposite effect, as all the tension of the evening blew up into an argument across the table, with the DM getting upset at us for skipping over her plans and not getting what she was trying to make, and other players taking my side and trying to get her to relent. This ultimately ended in the session just burning up and everyone leaving in a bit of a huff.
Damn.
After abruptly ending the session on heated words, we figured we'd just wait some weeks and try the ending again with cooler heads. Until some players privately messaged the DM that they were lacking energy to continue the campaign, and we ultimately just scrapped the campaign altogether and began a new campaign with one of the players as the new DM, which ran much smoother. Again, I
Jeez.
mean no personal harm to anyone reading this. This is merely my interpretation of events happening on my end of the seat. For every bad moment here were 2 or 3 laugh out loud bits and jokes. We had a good time ultimately. This is just highlighting the lowlights. To those that read these ramblings all the way to the end, thanks for taking the time to. Hope you elicited a bit of joy out of this. One of my favorite comments was, just to be clear, you were sent on a quest to save the baby. Despite despite some attempts at railroading, you managed to save baby. Just as you're about to leave, you get knocked out with an absurdly high save. Those who don't get knocked out are blackmailed into negating the save. The baby is taken with no rolls to save. The baby is murdered in front of you with no rolls to save. I'd have walked away from this table at that point. The DM cares more about their edgy baby murder plot than player agency, and that just isn't the kind of game I'm into.
Yeah, that I mean that is a fair aspect to be sure. Yeah, once again, we kind of have just like a real disappointing, unfortunate like ender here, y'all. Which and the irony of it is, like throughout the entire thing, I was thinking I do kind of love this concept, like the aspect of like island hopping or whatever to the different elemental islands or whatever and stuff, and each having its own kind of personal politics, culture, aspects and things that you can kind of get into. Like, I don't hate that. I don't mind. I think that's kind of cool. Like, I like the overall concept a lot. Um, Even like the ending one where in the void kingdom, it's like, oh yeah, you're going through like a ton of the different dimensions and possibilities. I feel like perhaps what at first I was kind of wondering, I was like, well, why don't your characters feel any connection to any of these other worlds? Like, you went through all the kingdoms. I would assume maybe hopefully you formed like some legitimate like connections and stuff with the world. Like maybe you've recognized other variations of like some of your friends, loved ones, family, or whatever in these worlds. Like that might be a reason enough for you to get involved. Um, but if it was like more of like a trap where you're just trying to find the way out, I still feel like the GM could have deliberately, purposely been like, okay, like OP was saying, this is kind of like a labyrinth trap where the way out is almost kind of like with Split Fiction, ironically, the game, where they go through all these different worlds and things. And it's like, hey, you have to participate in kind of all these things to get to the end, to get to like that, the portal that will allow you to leave and head out to the other one or whatever to progress. So, I mean, like, I feel like you could have done it that way. That's kind of how I thought it was being presented. I don't know if that's actually the case, but like, I could see how that would make you more interested. If you had like over 70 variations, that's goddamn impressive for sure. But I also feel like, yeah, the GM maybe was a little bit too caught up in their own shit. Like I definitely, along with that commenter, that would be testing my patience to the absolute 100th degree of basically being like, yeah, no, you this is how this is happening. Yeah, nope, you can't do anything. You can't save the baby. You can't do this. Da, 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 and it's like that's nah, I don't know about that
Not
one.
fun.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know about that one, King. I don't know about that one, Queen. I'm not trying to just sit here and watch you just murder infants and shit for your edgy like whatever. Like, nah, broski. Nah. If we fail, okay, fine, sure. But like be fair about it. Don't just base. I understand why GMs like to do it, but I've never been a huge fan of basically just like, oh, you're knocked out because of plot reasons, because I need you guys to go unconscious so I can move you to this location without, having to worry about you resisting. Or like, hey, roll a save. I rolled a 23. Oh, the DC was 35, so you fail. And it's like, they're not gods. What are you talking about? What are these enemies? How? It doesn't make any sense. I get it. Don't get me wrong, because sometimes you do just kind of need, the party or the players or the characters to be able to progress or get somewhere. You need to move them somewhere conveniently, or you need to maybe like, to set up like a nice narrative little moment. You might need them to kind of not fly off the handle, I get it. I understand. I think there's just more creative there's more interesting, imaginative, or creative ways you can go about doing that while still being fair, technically speaking. You know what I mean? Yeah, normally the best way to do that is usually you have to throw a particularly powerful enemy at them where they can't just blow through his their abilities easily, right? They can't overcome his influence or magic easily. Which, some might still be like, well, that's unfair. Well, it's like, well, no, he's active. He knows what you're doing. He's here now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna make you fight him because he's got other things going on. He doesn't view you as a huge threat, but this is a way to kind of progress the story in a narrative way and everything like that. So there are ways to do it. I don't say you have to do it that way specifically, but that is one option. Um, yeah, this definitely does though seem like a pretty textbook case of GM, though I must say they put in a lot of work and effort, it seems. I think they clearly were dedicated to the game, but they did seem to care a little bit more about their own personal story and, vision rather than what's the cardinal rule, acolytes and apprentices of a TTRPG game? What is the number one rule?
Oh,
Sam, yes.
isn't it to respect player agency?
Yeah, but and then why though? Why do we want to do that, Sam? What's the
Um,
most important thing at a table that everyone should try to do together equally?
Collaborative storytelling?
Yeah, to have fun. To have fun, Sam. That's right.
Gosh,
Everything we
fucking
do,
hell.
collaborative storytelling, respecting player agency, being considerate of the GM's time and effort and resources and energy they put into it. All of that is to do what? Say it with me now. Have
Have
fun.
fun.
That is the point. That is the intention. The desire and the objective and the intention is always to try and make sure the vast amount, the majority of people at the table have fun, right? As much as possible. You're not necessarily always going to be able to accomplish that perfectly all the time, of course, because people are different. People might have different, desires, ambitions, motivations, feelings, all of that stuff. But that is always the intention from play for player and GM. It should be both. Everybody should always be considering that is okay. how can I make this fun for not just me, but for, as many people as I can at the table? You know what I mean? And then you also have to, that's where you also come in mind and say, like, you know what? Everybody else seems to kind of be enjoying this kind of style or this flavor. I'm not really personally though. So maybe I need to remove myself from this situation. Because it's like, the reality of it is no matter how much some of us might feel this way, but there is technically speaking, there is no wrong way to play the game. Again, like I said, despite personal thoughts and opinions, there is technically no wrong way to play the game. It's just simply about how do you want to play? And does that mesh up and, coincide with how the rest of these people at this table want to play or not? Um, and it is what it is. So it's definitely unfortunate that the GM seemed to kind of got a little lost in her own sauce, because especially because it did seem like she was cooking pretty well in a lot of ways. She just got too lost in it, and that ended up negatively affecting it. And I definitely understand too, like with those big, huge, climactic kind of encounters or events or stages or whatever you do run, unfortunately, a high risk of kind of player burnout, GM and player burnout, where it's like, you got a lot of shit to manage and go. And especially if you play for a long time, you start to kind of your mind and body starts to kind of get weary, right? You get tired, you get drained, because especially if you're constantly focused and in it, this shit can be very tiring and draining, y'all. It's true. It's weird how drained you can sometimes get from playing a D&D game for like over the course of a couple hours, depending on what you're doing. Um,
Yeah. I mean, it's that would just be, I think that's just normal. It's mental fatigue.
yeah, and you do run the risk of tiring out, and then getting, yeah, like the tension's high, like OP was saying, like, when they were going, especially if the GM starts to get a little bit like that, because then the GM can start making some bad calls again, like railroading or making shit too hard and too difficult. That is one huge thing. Acolytes, apprentices, anybody who are GMs out there or any aspiring GMs, like something that's super important is that I also had to learn, and it's always a thing you have to manage. It's never really one right way to do it. But for anybody out there, who's a GM and wanting to be a GM, like you gotta know how to best manage your encounters. You know what I mean? I know for me, like, I like to make super strong like boss level enemies, But normally I'm not gonna unless, but you also obviously have to plan around your players a lot, right? You have to plan like how powerful are your players really, right? And what are they capable of? How have they handled most situations and encounters up to this point? So if you got like a super badass boss monster, do you really need to throw in like a couple of other monsters with them too? You know what I mean? Like if you've got like a party of four, right? Probably throwing like an ancient dragon at them, you probably don't really need a lot of other enemies to go along with it. You know what I mean? If you have like you absolutely can, you know what I mean, to make it a little bit like maybe one other enemy or like maybe like two smaller like weaker level enemies, just maybe like divert some of the aggro or even just throw in a little extra DPS just to make it a little bit more, tough. But if you have like, six or eight players, you definitely don't need like freaking, five like a boss level enemy monster who you've souped up to be able to technically take on all of them at once if he wanted to. But then on top of that, add like four or five like lackeys or like, less powerful enemies to also do it because that right there is gonna be like freaking 14 people in the initiative track. Especially if you're higher level on top of that, because everybody got so much shit they can do. Like, to be fair, you guys are level 9 here, so you're still middle of the pack on the road, but yeah, I don't know, because it's a balancing game, you know what I mean? There is no right way to do just any situation. You really do kind of have to feel it out based off of your players, your campaign, and what you're comfortable with running. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate, but OP, I hope that that other campaign that you guys started, you said it was running much smoother. I don't know if it's still going on, but if it is, I hope that you guys are enjoying it and you guys were able to kind of move past this unfortunate little snag that you had here. It's very unfortunate and super, again, blue balls that you didn't get to finish this campaign after all the time you put into it, especially because it seemed like a pretty dope climax, except for like, the whole Narjar thing, which is a little aggravating and annoying that he's just kind of constantly doing everything for you all the time. That's aggravating. It is. Um, but I definitely hope that you guys have a better situation at this point. Anything else you got for this one, buddy?
No, I think that's everything.
All right. Moving on then to the next one of the day. This one is titled Politely Asks the Player to Tone Down the Silliness. He Rage Quits and Calls Me Ableist by Creative Okra 7898. So I have a longtime friend who is a goofball, to put it mildly. He knows that I've been into RPGs for a long time now and has been trying to play with me for the last few years. All of these attempts being a bit disastrous. First attempt, he doesn't pay attention and makes jokes the entire time. Second attempt, he quits the week before the first session. Third attempt, he quits hours before the first session. And now the fourth attempt, he shows up 2 sessions, argues with the GM about the lore, randomly decides his character is racist against gnomes because another player is playing a gnome, and then gets sick and announces he is quitting the campaign. For some unknowable reason, he believed that if he missed 1 session, he would be kicked out. So he just simply preemptively quit. Now, I know saying all this makes him sound bad. And I also know that it makes me sound monumentally stupid for giving him, in fact, a fifth chance at this point. And that, dear reader, is because I am that monumentally stupid. Look, there's an RPG that I've been wanting to start a campaign for a while, right? And he knows this. Once I finally got the chance to start it, I told him and I emphasized, hey, this is going to be a serious horror campaign. I know you feel bad about messing up all the other times you tried to play, and I want to give you another chance, but you need to be sure that you are ready to be serious for this serious campaign. And if that doesn't interest you, it is completely okay to miss out on this one, okay? And I would rather you tell me now that you can't do it than have you just go on for a while and then drop out later. Now, he assures me many times that he has learned his lesson and that he can be serious for this serious campaign. Later on, he told me he thought by being serious, I meant paying attention to what's going on. You know, the absolute bare frickin' minimum. So the first session, he's still being goofy, right? Now, it can be kind of annoying, but whatever. We're just getting started, and he's, starting to kind of get used to everything. He asks if he's doing a good job. And I say, yeah, sure, because, he's giving me that whole look of, please give me approval. 3 sessions in, and he's still being ridiculous, making edgy jokes and taking nothing seriously. The character take a road trip, and he spends 10 real-world minutes yelling about how he wants to stop for McDonald's, acting like a literal toddler. The other players trust him so little to talk to NPCs that at one point another PC puts a hand over his character's mouth. Not in real life, of course, he just narrates it. To get him to stop fucking talking and screwing them over. He spends several minutes making loud, exaggerated noises of him muffled screaming into his hand to the point I have to tell him to stop because it's making it hard to hear the other PC who's actually talking. At the end of the session, he asks the other players if he's being too annoying in the same please give me approval tone. I can tell they're a little uncomfortable, but because it's not a big deal and they're nice guys, they say, oh, he is annoying, but, kind of in a funny way. I spend a while trying to think if I should bring it up to him. How should I bring it up to him? If it's even worth bringing up at all. Clearly, the other players aren't that uncomfortable with it, or they probably would have said something at this point. So maybe I'm the problem for expecting better? I don't know. This was supposed to be the campaign that I've been dreaming of for over a year. Maybe I'm just idolizing it too much. And of course, it's not going to be perfect. I don't know. Eventually, I decide to send him a message and I send a good amount of time and I spend a good amount of time making sure it's as polite and non-aggressive as possible. I use I feel sentences, the dear man technique, every healthy communication strategy I know to be clear that I am not mad at him, that this is a problem we can fix together, and I am here to support him in making the necessary changes. At first, he responds somewhat okay. I can tell that he's mad, yeah, but at least he is hearing me out, right? Again, I make it clear it's not a big deal. I'm sorry that I didn't bring it up earlier. I just want this to be fun for everyone. I'm pretty satisfied with the way the conversation turns out. Hooray for communication! Then the next day he texts me, "How are you?" And I know a shitstorm is coming because he only ever asks me how I am doing if he wants to tell me about his problems. Now, in retrospect, that seems to be a pretty clear red flag. I know. He says he wants me to kill off his character. And I get ready to assure him either that he can continue playing this character or even the game as a whole and we can work through this. I don't expect him to respond that he says he no longer wants to be friends, that he feels that I clearly hate him, and it's ableist of me to say he's not being serious because it's his mental illness's fault he acts that way. I still do not know what mental illness he thinks is causing him to make dick jokes, but okay. He says to never contact him again, all because I asked him to just tone down the silly craziness. Honestly, at this point, now that the shock of losing a friend has finally passed and I've stopped blaming myself, it's really hitting me just how absolutely absurd this entire situation was. Like, what the actual F just happened? Why was I even friends with him so long in the first place? Like, genuinely, what the F? In post. What do you think of this one, bud?
Well, it's this is something that I really do not like in terms of when you tell people, "Hey, this is going to be a certain way. Hey, please don't fucking not listen to me when I'm telling you exactly what we're about to do. Like, please, for the life of me, do not, like, I'm not joking. Come on." And then people just don't take that seriously whatsoever. I hate that because it's not your fault at that point.
No, you
Um,
clearly communicated what the expectations were. There is no real excuse for any kind of misinterpretation or misunderstanding. Um,
None. There's no room.
I will say too, I'm never a huge fan of a person trying to utilize their mental illness as an excuse for situations. You know what I mean? Like at least in this particular way, right? Because I feel
Yeah.
like anybody, like again, like if it really was a mental illness, like yeah, I don't know why he wouldn't want to be like a little bit more conscious, a little bit more understand. Like hey, like again, to be fair, the problem player apparently did say he did ask like, hey, I'm not being too annoying with you guys, am I? But from what OP is saying, he does it in that real kind of like sympathy way of like being like, please don't say that I am, rather than actually looking for legitimate, real feedback to help him better navigate, his mental illness. Because it's like, again, here's the thing, right? Mental illness absolutely can be a huge factor in certain cases of interaction. But anybody who I personally feel at least is worth a damn because they know that they have this, we talked about this before, I think, too, plenty of times, is that people like that who are actually good, decent people will actively work to not have that part of themselves have to negatively affect other people if they can help it, you know? they will at least always be actively working to be like, hey, they're not going to use it as a crutch or an excuse for shitty behavior. Like it's something where they're literally like, hey, like I have this thing and it should be accounted for. It should be, you know, noted and understood. You know what I mean? That there's like, hey, cut me a little bit of slack. I'm sorry, I have this thing. It's like cool, but you can't do shit and then be like, yeah, I have this thing, so oh
No,
well.
that's not real. Like,
Like that's yeah, that's not cool. Like that's not okay. Like again, that's like how in Family Guy, Peter found out that he could technically be clinically classified as, being mentally disabled, and then kept doing a tons of like messed up shit, and then justifying it by saying he's mentally disabled. Like it's like that's the kind of vibe at least that I got from this, especially since yeah, OP literally is like I don't know what your mental illness makes you make dick jokes constantly and incessantly, even when people are asking maybe to tone it down. Again, it could be maybe he's super socially anxious, right? And he's trying to constantly cut the tension by making jokes, right? That's his coping mechanism, is to constantly be jokey, jokey, or whatever. But to your point, Sam, it's like, look, if you are not able to cut the jokes, if that's the only way that you can function in this kind of game or environment or whatever, is you have to constantly be joking and fucking around or whatever, then this wasn't the game for you. You shouldn't have been in it. That's not this isn't the type of game that works like that.
no.
It's like, sure, you can cut some jokes here or there. I think, even in the most serious situations, it's okay and sometimes even a good thing to be able to joke a little bit, right? But there's definitely a very fine line between you overextending way too much. And like you said, OP communicated very clearly right off the top. This is the kind of campaign it's gonna be. Don't ruin this shit for other people just because you have a fear of missing out. You know what I mean? Just because you might be suffering from FOMO. That's not a legitimate reason to screw up other people's experiences and things because you
No.
are scared of maybe missing out. Like I don't know. The problem player here definitely comes across, in my opinion, as being a bit narcissistic. You know, I don't know if I'd say that he is like fully truly narcissistic, but he shows some narcissistic tendencies from what I've seen in terms of like how OP says he only ever asks how they're doing when the problem player wants to basically express their own feelings about something. Like that's problematic, and again, definitely a bit of a narcissistic aspect. Yeah, what do you think,
Yeah.
bud?
It's full bore narcissism. It's not even like it's just like very like, hey, I'm only gonna talk to you when it suits my needs, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
So you're basically relying on this person and not reciprocating, which I understand. Like some people are not, not all people are created equal in terms of like the people you can talk to, the people you can rely on necessarily. Like I get that.
True. Very true.
Your relationships and stuff are gonna vary with the people that you meet, but having such a heavily one-sided relationship is always just a really bad idea. And I'd say it's a bad
Problematic.
idea for both people involved.
Yeah, it's very problematic.
Because not only is the one person hurting because the other person doesn't give a shit, I think then the first person becomes over reliant on this one-sided kind of toxic relationship that they're pushing, and it can make people really fucking hate you.
And you don't even know why. Some people don't even realize it. They're
No, you
like,
don't. They don't
what
even
what did
realize
I
what they're
do wrong?
doing.
What do you mean? What did I do wrong? And it's like, it breeds resentment because all you're doing is just draining and taking and not actually reciprocating at all. I do like the comment down here. The top rated voted comment was, clearly the other players aren't that uncomfortable with it, or they probably would have said something at this point. Now, I wanted to highlight this bit here. It's been my experience that this is very often not true, or the players are uncomfortable and are talking about it amongst themselves. Players very often take their cues from the GM regarding what's appropriate to say or do at a given table. If a player is being disruptive and slash, but the GM doesn't say anything about it in front of the other people, that's how things can start to fester. And I 100% agree with that. Absolutely. Like, very often if people aren't familiar or comfortable with each other, right? If they haven't known each other for like a pretty reasonable amount of time, if they don't really hang out with each other like outside of the game at all, if they don't know each other on on a level beyond just D&D, odds are, yeah, they're probably not gonna be super upfront and honest about how they're feeling when someone asks them like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Because yeah, like even like I think me and Sam might feel similar in terms of like if a GM like is maybe doing something and they're not necessarily being an asshole or whatever, right? Like I think me and Sam might be more open about being more communicative because we're just kind of like that in general. Like we aren't particularly adverse to confrontation or just being kind of straight up with what we're thinking and feeling about some shit. But most people aren't really like that. Most people are like, if a person asks them like, how do you think I'm doing? Do you think I'm doing well? Do you think I'm doing good? Am I annoying you? You know, most people, if you're not, again, if that person, if you aren't being an asshole, right? They're probably not gonna want to like risk offending you at all by being, maybe you are. It's like me, like, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, you're kind of annoying me a bit. Like it's like I'd like it maybe if you could just tone it down or whatever, because that it does run the risk of a person maybe taking that wrong because yeah, you don't know each other like that, right? It's already kind of weird enough that you're asking me like am I annoying you? Am I doing good? Do you think I'm doing good? And it's like I don't look, man, I don't know you like that. I'm not trying to throw in, okay? Like my opinions and my feelings or whatever, like I would prefer to maybe come back to that when I start to know you a little bit better to see like what's all this because you're throwing a lot at me out of nowhere. Um and so it's like yeah, like again, another commenter says the same thing basically saying like also it's hard being put on the spot. It's hard to say actually yes you are to I'm not being too annoying, right? Like you know, another comment goes like, absolutely. The GM is supposed to be the leader at the table, and in cases like this, it is their responsibility to talk to problem players. Being put on the spot at the table without the GM's support is not a situation which many people would feel comfortable saying anything negative, especially if this player is friends with the GM, and the GM continues including them in things, which may imply the GM has no problem with the behavior. Now, again, I think we here at the Arcane Archive, like, yes, as a GM, it is 100% like primarily your job to kind of, manage the table. You know what I mean? But I will say it is, I think personally, it's the job of everybody at the table. Like if you see something going on that's kind of fucked up, whether it's from a player, the GM, or whatever, to another player or to the GM, like you should say something too. Like you shouldn't just be a bystander. Like I'll be honest, that's one of my personal biases. I hate the bystander effect. I am not a fan of that at all. I don't like it when people choose not to maybe try to act or say something or whatever just because they're like, well, somebody else will do it. So I don't, I shouldn't have to, get involved because somebody else. So I'm sure somebody else will help. And it's like just if you see something and it bothers you and you're like, you don't have to be like Captain Sabaho or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like you don't gotta be like everybody's fucking white knight getting your like sticking your nose in people's business that you don't need. But if you see a pattern of behavior that you are technically kind of involved in here, where it's like, okay, that's kind of messed up. Like this person like is clearly bullying or kind of targeting this person for no real reason that I can understand. Say something about that. Be like, hey, why are you doing that? Can you tone it back? Like you're kind of being a bit of an asshole to him. Like I don't think he's doing anything that deserves that. Like, make a comment about it. Again, you don't have to be aggro or aggressive. You can just simply make an observation, you know? Um yeah, what do you
Yeah.
think, Sammy? Like
Well, it
this
doesn't, not, it never has to be that complex. It's one of those things where it's like, I mean, everything you said is correct. Like, it's something that we talk about a lot is like how emotional this shit is or can be, and how many people kind of, I think, get caught up in I guess, the throes of emotion.
yeah, people take a lot of
Um,
things very personally,
and like that's, you have to try not to do that, but that's also very, very hard. So I'm not gonna talk shit too much because I mean, dude, even I get fucking mad.
Yeah. They're
It's not it's not always that big of a deal, but still.
Yeah, sometimes, certain things obviously matter more to different people, like I really do love this comment section because I feel like they are kind of killing it down here too. Like another one right underneath that says like, I see this happen as the time in nerd or counterculture settings. Or I see this happening, it means it's happened all the time. But and it's a huge red flag for me these days. The person running the group is, supposed to be the person running the group. Of course, everyone wants to be understanding and accepting of differences, but that understanding needs to stop as soon as it starts harming other people. Not only does OP repeatedly ignore when their friend makes unwanted sexual comments to the group, instead of owning up to their poor judgment and adding the problem player and addressing the situation, they then look to the other players to make the first move in calling out bad behavior. Well, they're abdicating their role as leader because things are uncomfortable for them, and it's difficult to call out a friend. Not only are they tolerating the bad behavior, they're refusing to actually do anything to fix the situation. I mean, I don't know if I go entirely that far, but sure. As a woman who's involved in quite a lot of majority male spaces, I don't know how often I've been told, oh, that's just the way he is. Or, well, you didn't say anything, so we thought it was fine. It's not my job as someone new to fix a toxic environment. Joking around is fine. Hell, as an elder millennial, I'm pretty good at diffusing some mild racism slash sexism slash homophobia with sarcasm on my own. But I just don't really have the time or energy to deal with it these days. If I'm playing a game, I'm here to relax. If the environment is toxic, I move on without saying why. It's not worth the time or effort. OP is too busy trying to people please the wrong people. It should never have gotten this far with their friend, and even when it did, it was immature of them to expect other players at the table to address the issue first. The other players weren't staying quiet because everything was fine. They were staying quiet because, best case scenario, policing a serious vibe at the table just isn't their responsibility. I hope OP takes time to re examine their priorities based on this experience. Otherwise, situations like this will keep happening and they're going to lose friends. Like, I will say for this commenter here, I feel like you are putting a little bit too much blame on OP. Like, and interpreting certain things other than what it actually was. I don't think he was waiting for the other players to be the ones to handle the situation. I think, like a lot of people, OP himself was being like, again, if the majority of the group is okay with this, I am the odd one out, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm overreacting. I don't see anywhere where he's like, well, the others didn't say anything, so I guess it was, perfectly fine. He was simply saying they didn't say anything, so maybe they were okay with it, and so maybe I was the only one who felt that way. Which is the same thing here. Like, again, if you are in a group, like, whether it's your job or not is kind of up to your decision, and you can't put that on anybody else. It's your responsibility to communicate what you're feeling. Nobody else can interpret that for you, right? Technically speaking, it's like if you do feel uncomfortable, if you feel like it was sexual harassment or whatever the hell else and stuff like that, like people might also think that too. But here's the thing, right? What if they call somebody out for that and that's not even actually what they're doing, right? That's just as
Yeah.
bad.
No, 100%.
Like that's not that's a shitty feeling. Like at least it should be. Like people, I think too many people do that, right? Too many people are too quick to try and call out and be like, "You're doing this horrible effed up thing," and it's like, "Whoa, no, I'm not." And even the person who you're like abdicating for or trying to like defend, they're like, "I didn't think he was doing that at all either." Like I can't tell you how many times. Like again, like part of the black community and stuff, like there's a lot of white people who want to try and be like, that person was victimizing you or that person was being racist towards you. And I'm like, whoa, hang on. Relax. I did not take offense to that. You don't have to take offense for me. You know what I mean? Like, so
Like
there's
what
that
are
element. That's that element too, right? Too many people, I think, nowadays are way too quick to take offense for somebody else. And that's just as bad as somebody who is not actually seeing some real shit happen and trying to assist at all, right? Again, balance, moderation, and there's no, good way, bad way, or whatever. But again, like for this commenter, like, I think you might be, yeah, I think you might be mistyping what OP was doing. I don't think OP was waiting for other people to handle the situation. He was again just trying to be considerate of everybody and also being trying to be self-aware of like, hey, am I just overreacting? That is a good aspect. That's a good trait for OP to have. That's a good trait for everybody to have, is to be like, all right, look, let me take a step back, right? Let me get some perspective, right? So again, he absolutely has to take into account that if the other players are saying that they're okay, he has to take into account, right? People's
Yeah.
words matter. I hate how so many people constantly try to be like, well, you should have just known how I was actually feeling, even though I said this. No, fuck that. That is not my responsibility. Like again, this comment I say is not my response. What isn't your responsibility is it's no one's responsibility to try to mind read somebody who's sending mixed signals or who isn't able to communicate clearly what they're actually feeling and thinking. That
Yeah.
it is up to that person to still, or at least you 100% have a very big part in how you're communicating and what you are projecting. You can't just say one thing and expect someone else to come and save you. Again, even the GM, if you as a player are not being honest and communicating what you're really feeling, no, you don't get to put the blame on the GM for you experiencing some shit you didn't like when you didn't say shit about it. In fact, you said maybe the opposite. That's not fair. It's everybody. That's what I'm saying. It's everyone's responsibility. It's not just on the GM. Because guess what? The GM's a normal fucking person too. They didn't sign up to be a fucking emotional or social policeman. You know what I mean? They're trying to run a game to have fun with people. So yeah, they do have responsibility, of course, to be able to recognize, but it is everyone's responsibility at the table to try to maintain the health of the table. Because you want to say again, this commentary says like, I didn't sign up to play these games to fix a toxic environment. I'm here to play a game. I'm here to relax. So is everyone else. You think that the GM didn't sign up to do that either? What are you talking about? So while I agree with some of the things that this commenter said, like 100%, there's a lot also that I feel like you're being toxic right now. Then you're not being fair. That's not fair to the OP at all. It's not fair to GMs in general. Okay, it's everyone's job and everyone's responsibility to contribute and help out at the table as best they can. Because we're all technically, for the most part, usually normal people just trying to relax, play a game, and have fun. Everybody, the GM included, they are also playing the game. Anything else you got to add, bud?
No, that's you got it all.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Take it away.
All right, I got another one for you coming up right now. Tried to
Got
fix a
another
struggling.
one.
Got another one right now. Tried to fix a struggling campaign, ended up the scapegoat. So I was part of this quote new game recently. I was invited by a GM that I knew from a 2.5 year game he had with me. That game ended half a year ago. We actually made it to level 20, which apparently is a miracle, and that was my
Woo!
first D&D game.
Wow. Impressive.
Our previous group didn't want to play again because of real life stuff, so the GM and I had been looking for a new group for a while. I went into this new one with optimism, despite it being a whole new social group. He found them in VR, and there were 4 of them total, so 6 players, including
VR.
myself and the GM. Usually, my GM only likes to run games for new players, since it gives them the ability to help everyone equally and not worry so much about rules lawyering and min-maxing. Even though I had a long game with him, I think he liked that I was more into roleplay than mechanics, so I guess I made the cut. But as it turns out, only one player from the VR group was actually new at D&D, and the rest had experience, and some were even already in other games. Cue the problem. At the end of our last D&D session, one of the players called me out. He said it seemed like I didn't enjoy combat, like I was an autopilot trying to end my turn quickly. I took the comment seriously and started trying to improve. I talked with our fighter about spell choices and action economy, then I messaged the GM with an idea for a magic item I thought would be a fun fit. He told me it was too strong, which I was fine with, so I followed up with a list of existing items I'd be interested in for future levels. That's when the GM asked me if I was doing all of this because I wanted to or because of what the other players said. I told him it was the latter. His response surprised me. He said he wasn't happy I was going out of my way for a group who hadn't been putting in the same kind of roleplay effort for me. He also said the group had been leaning too far into min-maxing, and that if it kept going, the campaign might not last. I panicked. I felt like I had accidentally triggered a bigger issue, so I reached out to a few of the other players, encouraged them to message the GM about character story stuff instead of just loot and leveling. Ooh boy. Do you see where this is going?
Yeah, it's definitely already showing to be rather problematic, I would say.
Um, One of them noticed something was off and pressed me about it. I ended up venting pretty emotionally. I told him I felt like I was putting in so much effort for the group, but it wasn't being returned. It felt exhausting and kind of thankless. Another player reached out and tried to patch things up, but he did it in kind of a joking shitposty way that didn't sit right with me in the moment. I snapped. I told him he was socially inept and didn't understand social cues. That's the
Oosh.
same thing, buddy. He was really insecure about it.
Hmm.
That hit him hard and he left the group shortly after. I think he mentioned he was
Ah.
autistic, but I wasn't sure if it was a joke since he jokes about everything. The next session, everyone was quiet. I told them what happened and explained that the player who had left probably wasn't coming back. No one really reacted. One by one, people started leaving the call. The GM said he'd think about whether the game should continue. That was the last time I was in the server. I left not long after, leaving a message that I needed to make space for myself, that I'd be willing to come back if people wanted to talk. The GM hasn't followed up. Extra content after the incident. I ended up talking with the GM privately in an attempt to salvage the game in the group. He admitted he hadn't been enjoying running the game for a while. He said he had been dreading sessions and that the whole situation gave him a convenient excuse to stop. He also told me that he was hesitant to continue the game without the player who left, since the rest of the group is still friends with him. I tried to explain that the D&D group didn't have to be tied to their VR friend group, but I don't think he really saw it that way. Looking back, I guess I was the odd one out from the beginning. I had been taking notes in a Google Doc, sharing it with the group, even learned Google Sheets to track stuff like quests, NPCs, loot, etc. And I had been flooding the Discord with art for everyone's characters to try to keep everyone engaged and excited to play. It feels like I was brought in to help shift the tone of the group towards something the GM preferred, but once things started falling apart, I was the one who took the blame. He didn't step into his own burnout, but instead let me take the hit. I'm not angry anymore. I'm mostly disappointed. I thought we were better friends than that. Realizing that he wasn't as honest or grounded as I thought has left me questioning whether I ever really knew him. I know I made mistakes. I shouldn't have snapped the way I did, but I also really tried to make things better. I worked on my build, collaborated with other players, checked in with the GM, encouraged people to roleplay more, and somehow that made me the problem. The GM got to walk away quietly without admitting his discontent. The others still have their friend group, and I'm left with this lingering feeling that I was just a temporary fix for a group that never really wanted me there. So yeah, the campaign's dead. The campaign group silently dissolved. Several people expressed wanting to continue, but at the end of the day, the GM is the one who decides whether it's worth fixing or not. TLDR got called out for not optimizing in combat, tried to improve and help the group, ended up blamed for everything, even when tensions boiled over. GM admitted he didn't want to run the game anymore, but left me holding the bag. Everyone else stayed friends. I got ghosted. Guess I was just a band-aid for a game that was already broken. Oh.
Hmm.
Oh.
See, this is another interesting one. Like I feel like yeah, we definitely got quite a few interesting ones today.
So I think
So hang on, there's a comment down below, highest voted one that says, "Holy shit. After all that, you still think you're the hero. You weren't scapegoated, you actually were the horror. And that pretentious hope they enjoy their VR really seals it." Apparently, the same commenter also says, also, looking at your post, pretty sure fake now. Literally a post slamming a GM for using AI, then followed by posting admitted to using AI to GM.
what I'm a little confused by is I never saw anything about the little VR whatever thing.
Yeah, like my kind of feeling on it, yeah, too, was again like this dude, like I just don't really see like what the actual issues that he was saying like in having. Because again, it's like because the fact of the matter was is that OP was the one who snapped and said shit to that one player, causing them to leave. Like you didn't have to cater to anything that they were saying or doing or whatever. Sure, maybe the GM brought you in to maybe help kind of to try to maybe shift some things in the group to maybe make it a little bit more like he wanted. Maybe the GM wasn't super happy with how it was going because again he said that he didn't like it or anything, and it's like okay, yeah, GM could have been a little bit more ballsy and again honest and straight up. But I mean, I don't think he was really expecting you to also. I don't think he was planning for you to be the one to take the fall for this shit, like or anything. Like I don't know. What do you think, Sammy?
Oh, I agree. I'm kind of in agreement with you. I don't think this was necessarily intentional, but I think this is someone who and don't be too mean to me, but I think this is someone who fancies themselves as very self-important. Because a lot of their phrasing is very like, I did all this work, no one else did anything. I can't believe they would treat me like this. And I mean, no offense, but it
I mean,
kind of feels really like self-important a little bit. I understand that like people are allowed to have opinions and maybe I'm looking too far into it, but sometimes it feels a little bit like they could only see the problems with everyone else and not necessarily the fact that like you ever thought about maybe you're the odd man out for more than just the fact that they play VR without you and it might be because your play styles are so intrinsically different? Because that is a thing. Not having a matching playstyle with a group can make it very hard to play with a group. Not because anyone's the bad guy necessarily, not because anyone did something like horribly wrong, but just because people play in a different way. And that's all there
yeah,
is to it.
everybody's got their strengths and their weaknesses. I mean, I don't. What my biggest thing, I just don't understand how it actually got here because what I don't understand is OP. You basically just immediately fold and go along with what like every other person asks or says. Like literally say at the end of the problem apparently happened was like, okay, at the end of the last D&D session, one of the players calls you out and says it seemed like you didn't enjoy combat, like you were just on autopilot trying to end your turns quickly. And you say you took the comment seriously and started trying to improve. Now, why though? Was that true? Were you feeling that way? Like, was that actually a thing you were really feeling? Because you just say like, "Well, I took it seriously and started trying to improve." Okay, well, wait, but was that even true? Because you just, okay. So if you take it seriously and started trying to quote unquote improve, then I guess that would make I have no choice, I guess, but to assume that it was true and that's why you did it. But then immediately after that, like when your GM questions you, like going like, okay, are you doing all this because you want to, or just because of what the other player said? And then you say that to him that it was the latter, that you're doing it just because of what the other player said. So then it's like, well, okay, so you that wasn't true then. So why are you just why didn't you just say like, no, that's not true. I'm engaged. Like why did you just go along with what that player was saying? Like And then you basically just do the exact same thing now with the GM, where he's like, the GM says, "Oh, he said he wasn't happy. I was going out of my way for a group who hadn't been putting in the same kind of role play effort for me." He also said the group had been leaning too far into min-maxing lately, and that if it kept going, the campaign might not last. Now, that right there, like, I don't know why the GM, that doesn't make any sense. How is the campaign not going to last because characters are min-maxing? Like, I don't understand. What is the GM doing about that? There's a problem. But then you say that you panicked. You felt like you had accidentally triggered a bigger issue. So then you reached out to a few of the other players, encouraging them to message the GM about character story stuff instead of just loot and leveling. Why would you do that? Like, the GM didn't ask you to do that. Like we talked about the whole thing about like how it's everybody's job and everything before, but in this particular instance, again, you're going off of what just the GM was saying about how they felt. That is something technically that the GM should then communicate with the people because that's the GM's personal thoughts and feelings on it, right? And that he might not be having fun with that. Again, it's like the GM should be the one to communicate that. It's not like he didn't even ask you to do that, and it's not your job to be like, "Hey, you guys, we should probably all be like sending like," because that again, that's also different from literally what we were just talking about before. Like but even more so specifically for you, you're just acting like everybody's telling you that. Like what are you trying to do? What are you trying to play? Technically speaking, you made all these decisions. Like nobody asked you to do that. Nobody told you to do that. People just made personal observations and feelings about, something that was going on with you, and you didn't seem to clarify or have any opinion or thought of your own of like, no, that's not true, or no, that's not how I feel. Like it's almost literally like they were just like, it feels like you're doing this, and you're just like, yeah, you're right, I am doing that. All right, let me see if I can do something else. Are you sure you're doing this for this reason? It seems like you're doing it, but you know what? You're right. I am doing that. I don't like that. No, yeah, I should do this. Okay, and it's like, but then you say that you're getting panicked and you're feeling all this anxiety and stress because of that, instead of even just being honest and straight up like, no, this is how I feel. I'm fine. This is how I feel. We're good. I'm good. Is there a problem? Like, do you have a problem? Why do you have a problem? Like, I'm fine playing or doing this, you know.
Like, what's going on here?
And then you apparently end up emotionally dumping. Like you end up venting emotionally to them when they ask you like, what's going on? Like, why are you doing that? And then you tell him basically what the GM said that the GM felt like, being like, I told him I felt like I was putting in so much effort for the group, but it wasn't being returned. Well, one, again, if the effort you're talking about is trying to do all of these things that nobody technically asked you to do, then you shouldn't like they don't have an obligation to quote unquote reciprocate. Nobody asked you to do that, right?
No.
They just simply expressed what they thought or felt, and then you responded in this way. So they shouldn't. They don't have that obligation. It's that like that right there again ruins your argument or thing. But it's also like you're. It seems again you're just kind of repeating or quoting what the GM said. Did you actually feel that way before the GM said that it seems that way or that the GM feels that way? Like, I guess this is maybe why a lot of people are thinking that it might be fake because, yeah, a lot of the progression just doesn't make sense to me where it's like OP does literally just act like he's a fucking doll that, like, just, or not even a doll. Like, he acts like he's a tape recorder that just repeats what everybody else says or feels or thinks and doesn't have a single bit of their own, like, feeling. Like, like you panicked, you triggered a bigger issue, and then again, exhausting and kind of thankless. Like nobody asked you to do it. Another player reached out to try to patch things up, but he didn't do it in a way that apparently you felt was sufficient. You felt it was kind of a joking, shitposty way that didn't sit right with you. So you snapped on him, of all people, and told him that he was socially inept and didn't understand social cues. and the fact that he was apparently really insecure about it and it hit him hard, and he left the group shortly after.
Yeah. It's like, what is that?
Yeah,
What's the wherewithal here? This seems very strange.
you're just bouncing around everywhere. Like again, I can understand. I think why people think this might be fake because yeah, a lot of the progression does not make sense in regards to like again, you just like there the escalation and the switching unless you are omitting a lot of important context. It's like it doesn't make any damn sense how any of this happened except by you just doing a ton of shit that didn't make any sense. Nobody asked you to do any of this stuff. People just made observations about their own personal opinions and feelings, and you just went along with it. And then you're like, oh, well, I'm the one who's being blamed now for all of this stuff. And it's like, are you? I mean, did anybody actually say that to you? Like, the GM is the one who could start the game up again if they wanted to. The GM saying that they don't want to.
Yeah, that's a
Who's
weird one.
who's saying you're the one who was left holding the bag or the whatever? Like, it feels to me you are arbitrarily just taking on all of this shit without anybody asking or saying anything actually about it. Like it feels like you are, if anything is happening to you, you've done it all to yourself, literally. Because I mean, am I crazy? Am I bugging, Sammy? Can you find anywhere that it seems like people are saying like, you should do this or you should like I want like you're fucking up, you're doing this thing, and then like because they didn't even say you're like fucking up. They literally just made statements or observations about their own personal opinions.
Yeah, that's really strange.
Like I ended up talking with your partner, planning to salvage the game in the group. And I also then says like after next session, everyone was quiet, told him what happened, and explained the player who left probably wasn't coming back. How do you know that? Like, was it a one-on-one kind of talk where you just kind of said some shit to him or whatever, and you're like, well, he's probably not going to come back. Has he talked to the GM? How do you know he's not coming back? No one really reacted, but then one by one, people started leaving the call. What do you mean one by one? Nobody said shit. You just told them what happened, and then everybody was just like, well, okay, and left. That doesn't make any damn sense either. What are we talking about?
So weird.
Need to make space for myself. What space? What space? But I'd be willing to come back if people wanted to talk. You didn't want to talk. A dude literally talked to you. You fucking said that he was socially inept, and apparently something that was like, come on, man. Yeah, no, this whole shit. Literally, one of the comments down here also says like, thank you for sharing your story. Gonna have to be honest, it kind of sounds like you might have actually accidentally been the entire catalyst for this. No offense. I totally get being anxious and all. Still, it sort of sounds as if your GM was planning to take care of this on their own, and the snapping, oof, not a good look. Next time, it's best to let people solve their own issues. I broke up an MMO guild learning this lesson. And the OP then responds saying, like, I recognize that. Hindsight always 2020. Thank you for the compliment. But it's like, yeah, it's like you if you are even actually the one responsible, which I don't even know if you would be, yeah, it's like you did all of this shit yourself. Like nobody asked you to. Pretty sure, yeah, most things were gonna probably be solved, or maybe not. I don't know. Like you took on way more. Again, this is the irony too. We were just talking about this before. Like it's everybody's responsibility, and then ironically, we find a story that actually pretty, I think, heavily highlights the dangers of going in the opposite direction, right? Of people who, the opposite of people who are like bystander effect, or like I don't want to get involved, I don't want to have any responsibility, and then we have the opposite example of a person taking on way too much responsibility that they have no real need or business taking on. Another commenter says, long running campaigns for friend groups when you are the odd man out is hard to do, especially very high level with a lot of legacy stuff you might not have wanted. You reached for the challenge, but it was too much. Plus, there's probably a reason other GM does not GM for them. Also, you cannot enforce RP if people just like rolling dice and blowing stuff up. Good thing is you are a GM. You could easily go somewhere and put up an advert, get a game going, and keep a group as long as you are competent and come prepared. And if you have flakes, not take it personally. OP response, thanks. It definitely is something to think about. I originally thought D&D was a way to make friends, but in retrospect, it's probably better to do with people you already know you like. Well, no, D&D absolutely can be a way to make friends, 100%. You don't have to already know the people to play with a group.
No, you do
Like
not.
that's yeah. Again, it's just you clearly OP clearly overextended themselves in a way that was not necessary, you know, and in a way that was also not really constructive or helpful even. Because that's the thing, right? Maybe if they had overextended themselves, even if it was good, if it was well intentioned, and at least executed like, hey, I've kind of noticed maybe that we've done a lot of like metagamey things. Like I'm just gonna play the way that I want to play, right? Like I'm not negatively affecting anybody. Like just because I might not be as focused on the combat aspect and I'm more like the role play and flavor and social aspect, I'm not like I'm not fucking anything up for anybody. You guys are already super powerful. I don't need to be super powerful too. Like you could have maybe influenced the game just like that.
Yeah, that would have been easy.
I don't know. Did we level up yet? I'm starting to get annoyed at that too. Yeah, I don't know. Like that, this whole post is definitely kind of strange to me. But any other things you have for this one, bud?
No, that's all for me.
All right, let's move on to the last one we got for you guys today. All right. This one is titled, I had to kick a loyal regular because he turned out to be a pathologically lying cheater. And it got even worse by I am Zeberg. I'm a DM of a D&D 5e campaign for about 6.5 years now, which we played offline at my table. My loyal regular was present from the very beginning of the campaign, barely missing a single session. He was also very invested in the game, and as a person, he was an absolutely likable, caring guy. He had the tendency of being a bit of a know-it-all and liked challenging me as a GM, but the positives far outweighed the negatives. Nothing wrong with that. Keeps you honest, keeps you on your toes, I guess. It depends on the style, I think, or the flavor of the challenge. Now, he always had the reputation of being lucky with his rolls, to a point where it visibly frustrated some players and also kind of me as a GM, because he seemingly managed to succeed every single saving throw. But I figured, bullocks. This is just a halo effect at work, and in the end, we all roll the same average of 10.5. So I suggested to the group that we track our rolls. So, note down the result of every single d20 rolls, no matter if it's disadvantage, normal, or advantage, which everyone had a lot of fun doing. So after around 300 rolls or so, we calculated our averages. We had our unluckiest around 9.7 and our second luckiest around 11. And then there was the loyal regular with an average of 13.9. Hot damn. That's pretty bonkers. So to see how bonkers that exactly is, I calculated the probability and calculated it again. I then used various AI models to double check. But no, every single one gave me the same result. His luck has a probability of 0.000000000000000000062%. Or in other words, a 1 in 169 quintillionth of a chance. That's a lot. I don't even know if I had all the zeros in there or if I maybe added some extra ones before. I'm not sure. If you roll 15 times in a row, a nat 20, that is still 100,000 times more likely than having an average of 13.9 after 300 rolls. Then I started reflecting a bit more about this. When was the last time he failed a major saving throw? When was the last time he rolled an initiative below 20 with his +5 modifier without advantage? I can maybe remember one instance he had a lower initiative, and the last major saving throw he failed was more than 2 years ago. On his tracking sheet, I can also see that every fifth roll is a 19. I also started to realize why he always kept all his dice sets in his dice tray. He rolls his dice, and if he might need to swap, he'll just simply switch it with one of the other d20s he's already prepared, probably a 19. And his reason to not sit next to the GM was most likely not because I always accidentally peek at your dice rolls, and more that I can't peek at his dice instead. I don't really see how we can peek at your dice rolls if you have a literal DM screen. That's literally what that's for. I don't see how that. Okay, anyway. All right, something is completely off. What the heck? So I'm organizing a sit down with that player right before our next session. It's going to be simple. I confront him with the numbers. He owns up that he's cheating. He'll apologize to the group. We talk it out together because, hey, there might be some sort of underlying issue for his cheating that we might support him with. And for the next few sessions, he's going to be under special supervision from me until he rebuilds my trust. So I'm confronting him with these probabilities and rolls and ask him how he can explain these wildly unlikely numbers. His answer? Not even an excuse like, "Oh, maybe one of my dice is weighted. I got them as a gift from a friend." Nope. He just straight up says, "Yeah, I'm just lucky." You're kidding, right? You're kidding me, right? Just lucky. Okay. There is a clear line between being lucky and being a cosmic biased anomaly of luck. Well, all right, we got a boss fight coming up, mini rolls to be had. So he gets a dice set from me. And he rolls using a dice tower, and one of the other players tracks his rolls. The result after the session was 53 rolls with an average of 11.2. That's 2.7 below his average of 13.9. His response? Well, to get scientifically significant results, you need at least a sample size of 10,000, if not even millions. Bro, what a load of horseshit. This isn't a scientific experiment. Dice are used to learn about probability because they're one of the most reliable ways to calculate probability. You don't need a sample size of 10,000 or more to determine the first clear tendencies. Okay, what now? I organize another sit down with that player because I feel that there's some sort of underlying issue at work with him. He always made some rather strange claims about himself, among other things that, he doesn't apparently feel pain. And that is a genetic defect only 1 in a million people have. So I'm
Hmm.
trying to probe him about what makes him cheat and make these outrageous claims. Whether he has some sort of fear of failing, he claims that he has rather strong exam anxiety, or maybe that he sees me as some sort of enemy that he has to defeat because he feels that I'm unfairly singling him out a lot of the times. And to be fair, he does usually suffer the most severe consequences during the game, but that's really mostly because he always has or because he's always the cockiest in what his character does. But his response, nope, nah, not really. So in the end, I'm forced to make an incredibly strange choice. Except that I'll have a perpetually lying and cheating player on my table where I will always have to supervise and second guess everything he does, or kick out a loyal and active regular. So I chose the latter. I didn't consult the rest of the group for the simple reason that first and foremost, I, as a GM, have to enjoy the game. And I couldn't possibly enjoy a game with a player like this on the table. And this isn't just someone who occasionally cheats. This is someone who lives in a perpetual lie. Yeah, I'm just lucky, wasn't the excuse of a liar. That was from someone who was completely convinced of his own bullshit. No averting of eyes, no nervousness in his voice of what a typical liar normally will display. When he already lies this profusely about something that's as banal as D&D, I honestly dread to think what other things he lies about. And if I can't help such a person, then the worst I can do is to give this person a stage to live out his toxic delusions. So yes, I had to kick out a loyal regular because he can't own up to cheating. But wait! There's more! It gets worse! In this group also plays his best friend. This best friend is a very emotional person and suffers from heavy social anxiety. Oh, great. So when this whole hullabaloo started, his stance was clear very quickly. I'm picking on the loyal player. When loyal player claims his roles are completely legitimate, then this player, his best friend, believes him 100%. He also continues, he also continued to emotionally berate me in various ways. That I'm putting loyal player on a pillory. What the hell? Jesus. Sorry about that. That I'm destroying the group. That I don't have any proof for his cheating, etc. When I told the group that I'm forced to kick out the loyal player, he called me 5 minutes afterwards and berated me for 30 minutes straight with pure emotional blackmail. Oftentimes, not even making sense in what he was saying in his emotional fervor. He then left the group in protest as well. So, what about the other three players of the group? I met up with them after the first two left, and I was relieved to hear from them. They were simply overwhelmed by the situation. They didn't want to say anything, fearing that they could potentially make everything even worse. They accept the decisions I had to make and want to continue our campaign. That's about 10 to 20 sessions before completion at this point, I believe. Though all of them stay non committed on the question on whether a loyal player cheated or not, but that's not really any of my concern. I cut all contact with the cheating player and his emotional best friend. The three others are all still in contact with them. Oddly
Hmm.
enough, Loyal Player is also incredibly lucky during Magic the Gathering and other games they play together. Huh.
Hmm.
Funny that. What a strange coinky dink, huh? The campaign is currently on hiatus to let this train wreck settle a bit. But yes, having the outrageous requirement to not be a perpetual cheater has cost me two active players and a truckload of emotional labor. End post.
Hmm.
Well, what do you think of that, buddy?
I love it. Here, here's what I will say. There's nothing that I think is more of a sin at a table, aside from like, insulting other people, getting, fighting with other people. But cheating. Cheating. Um, like I never once understood why cheating would be something that people are like ready to do so quickly. It's really, really sad to me. Um,
Um,
like it's a collaborative storytelling game where you need to, I don't know, you
the
need to
only
cheat. This is how you want to play the game. Like it just really makes me sad.
Yeah. I mean, like the only kind of scenario I think about like that I would understand a person maybe wanting to cheat would be like if they were having just a slew, like a string marathon of absolutely garbage, god awful rolls, right? Where it was just like they just cannot roll for shit the entire game. Especially if it's like a clutch kind of time too, where you're like, oh hey, our characters could die here, and you're just rolling garbage after like because again, right? Here's the thing about statistical probability, right? Is the weird, crazy thing is almost anything is actually possible, right? Theoretically speaking, almost anything's possible. This guy, rolling 13.9 on average over 300 rolls. Like that is exceedingly improbable. We literally said he said it's what? It's 1.69 quintillion of a chance. Like there's almost no way in hell that could ever happen. Ever. Like it's almost to the point of being impossible, but there is still a chance. But that being the case though, doesn't mean that it's probable, right? But there's also plenty of other things that are improbable too. Like it's highly improbable for a person to apparently roll seven natural 20s, right? But in another story that we were reading, apparently that really did happen. They said that they checked, and apparently that happened. That is crazy. That's almost unheard of. So I'm not.
Hmm.
So that being the case, though, it is just like, hey, just because something is possible, though, doesn't mean it's probable. We usually want to speak in the world and navigate through the world based on probability, not possibility, because anything theoretically is. With this, it's like, yeah, bro, look, there's almost no way this could happen. And the fact that he's so ready and willing to deny it, to basically be like, I'm just lucky. I'm just that lucky. I'm just that lucky. My question, okay, well, let's go to Vegas. Let's go to a casino, my dude. Are you kidding me? You're that lucky? Let's go to a casino. Let's clear them out. Why haven't you done? If you're that lucky, if you really believe you're that lucky, why haven't you done that? You get the lottery. What are you talking about? Buy lottery tickets. If you're really that lucky, this is unheard of. This is obscene. This is obscene amount of luck. Why don't you do that?
It's crazy to me. I like
And again,
have
like,
I can't even deny the primal urge of like fudging a roll or making things
yeah,
go your way.
yeah,
I
100%.
get it, dude. I
What you
get
want to
it.
feel that rush of accomplishment, success, right? Everybody does. Everybody feels that. Everybody gets that.
Even as a DM, sometimes I'm like, come on.
Yeah. It's like I really wanted to hit him with this. I really wanted to get him with that. You know? I mean, hell, the GM himself even said, like over the 2 years or whatever they were playing, or 4 years, whatever, or 6.5 years, 6.5 years, where it's like, man, he's resisted every saving throw. Like, that's super clutch. Like, man, I get it. There are a lot of people who feel like, hell, there's some people who get pissy because their character took damage at all. Because they failed at something. Because they aren't perfect. Because and I get it, I understand from a psychological standpoint. It's because again, this is what they want to be in real life, right? They're living vicariously through their own character. And that they want to feel perfect. They want to feel amazing. They want to feel infallible, invincible. They don't care about nuance. They don't care about struggle. They don't care about reality. They want to escape reality to the clearest they can, right? And that's not healthy. Like, I mean, and that is what the GM himself says. He would basically by continuing to allow this player to participate, especially when they aren't even willing to acknowledge anything. They're just stalwartly being like, "Nah, I'm just lucky. I'm just lucky. What do you mean? No, I'm lucky. I'm just that lucky. I'm just that good. What do you mean? I'm just that good. What do you mean?" They would rather
Just
do
me.
that and it is toxic. It is because like again, remember when we say acolytes, a little escapism isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's good for you, right? A little escapism can be great. It's fantastic,
Yeah.
but everything in moderation, everything in balance. You can't go so far to the edge where you're sipping that Kool-Aid now for real. You know what I mean? You can't just sit here being like, yeah, no, because again, here's the thing, right? Why play the game then? If you're not willing to fail, why play the game, right? And again, me and Sam, anybody who plays this game understands, right? Especially when you have like a really clutch moment where you really want something to happen. You really want to try to accomplish this in the game, and you have to make a roll for it. And you're like, fuck me, can I just please fucking get this thing, right? Yeah, you absolutely are gonna have that desire or that maybe that inclination to be like, I could just try to fudge the roll. Like it wouldn't hurt. And to be fair, that's even what the OP here is saying, right? This isn't somebody who maybe just like cheats on occasion, right? Because personally, I wouldn't even mind that myself, right? If it really was like, a really choice, badass, cool moment, I wouldn't even begrudge somebody who maybe fudged a roll, GM or player, for like, again, for the rule of cool, right? To increase the overall fun and enjoyment for everybody at the table, right? I wouldn't mind that because
Yeah.
again, that's the point, right? Because at the end of the day, it is up to us to make up what we're doing, right? But there's a difference between doing it like when it really kind of matters, when it could really be fucking cool. Because there's plenty of times where GMs will do that too. GMs will fudge it and be like, oh, you know what? The DC was only like 5, or oh, you get advantage or something, or you get, a bonus or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. It's not the worst thing ever. It's not. It's not the worst thing ever. It is a problem though when you're doing it so often that you get an average of 13.9 for your rolls. That's a problem. That's problematic because that's just fucking ridiculous at that point. Like again, then you have to ask yourself, why are you playing the game? Why are you rolling dice at all? Just write a book.
Honestly, yeah.
Just write a book. Why are you here? What are we doing?
Write it. Write a book.
Just write a book. Like, what are we doing here? And I mean, maybe the OP should have talked a little bit more with the rest of his players about this, you know? But he himself said that he couldn't enjoy the game with a guy like that there, which I don't know. Like, I understand. I get it. I don't know if I agree with the fact that he just kicked out a player without actually talking about it with everybody on how they felt at least. Like, I don't necessarily think that he it was wrong of him to kick the player because I agree. I think it's probably best that he probably did leave, but I do still think he maybe should have at least like included everybody and said his reasoning for why. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if he should have just, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Because that could also maybe be, that could maybe be messier. I don't know. Like, I don't think there was any right or wrong way to do this, really. Because he did try to have a conversation with the player, like twice. He tried to have a conversation, to be like, hey, if you're just honest about this, we can work through it. Because he clearly had good aspect and positive aspects too, right? Where he was loyal and consistent and dedicated. God, that is such a rarity to have, man. But I think a lot of his investigation, a lot of his findings, a lot of his data, I think is fair, reasonable, and concrete. Dude's literally trying to claim that he's like 1 in 1 millionth of a person who can't feel pain at all. I mean, there's a pretty easy way to test that theory. If we're gonna be slightly maybe morbid, but honest, we could test that theory. I could just quickly like, jab you with a needle or something and see if you feel it. Like just like a quick like blip, you know. Did you feel that? Like, it's like I don't know. What do you think, bud? Like,
I mean, it's pretty. How do I put this? I really hate. Like again, we've talked so much about like um you know the different what's acceptable, what's not acceptable at a table. Um, and it sucks that this was the kind of thing where it's like this loyal player that I cared about and I liked having in my games turns out to be a piece of shit. Um,
yeah.
and because that's the kind of gut-wrenching thing. And it's really unfortunate because you're also like, unfortunately, even if they've hurt you because of what they've done, even if it probably makes everybody feel worse. Their reactions probably make everything feel worse as well. Of like it, people getting defensive or all these like just unfortunate. Now everyone's hurt or in a bad mood or
Yeah.
all of these different things. Like that sucks. In all honesty, apart from everything else, it probably hurts the most that now you lose someone over something like this when in reality it could have been avoided by just not doing that. Not cheating
Or
or
just
like
or just being honest about it.
having a different there's like probably a different way to talk to people like this, but it's very hard.
I mean, I don't know. Like it seemed like OP did everything really within his reasonable power to talk it over with him to be like, hey, bro, like. Yeah, I don't really know because like yeah, he I don't think there's anything else he really could have reasonably done. He sat down with him twice. He gave him the opportunity to come clean. He asked him specific questions on like, what he might be feeling that maybe is potentially the trigger or the core of his behavior of like, yeah, like, hey, do you have a fear of failing? Like, do you see the GM as some sort of enemy to be defeated because you feel unfairly singled out? Like, and apparently says no to all of that. He's like, no, no, I'm good. Because again, this is what we're talking about, right? Before too, about if a player isn't able or doesn't communicate what they're really thinking or feeling, it's like, well, it's not the job of the GM or anybody for that matter, anyone in the game, out of the game, anything, whatever's happening, it's not the job of someone else to read your mind and figure it out. They can do their best, but it is us as humans, as creatures who are capable of more coherent, direct communication. We're capable of it. You can do it. It is much more our jobs to communicate what we're feeling. That's the point of language. That's why it was invented. So that we could much easier, better understand each other, aside from just doing simple grunts and sounds and gestures. That's the point of language, was to make communication far more efficient and effective. But it's kind of fucking worthless and useless if you don't utilize it, right? It has no purpose or function if you don't utilize it. Your tools are right here, everybody. You know what I mean? Your tools are right here, students. But your tools are just that. They're tools. They can't function on their own. No tool can do the job for you. You know what I mean? It's actually kind of another thing that a lot of people are saying about AI too. Is like people say like, well, AI is just a tool. And it's like, well, technically a tool up to this point can never just do something for you, usually. Like you have to be the one to use that tool to accomplish something. But either way, that's another interesting kind of debate or conversation for another time. Um, but yeah, like personally, I'm gonna say for myself, I don't think the GM's an asshole. I think OP did everything in his power reasonably and fairly to try and solve this situation. And at the end of the day, what he was left with, he had to make his own personal judgment call for himself. It's his game, and he was like, you know what? This is not something that I can have fun with interacting with, so I'm gonna say no. And it is what it is. I don't think he made a bad call personally. The only thing I would say that I maybe disagree with is that I think he still he should have involved everybody in it. Um, but yeah, that is what it is. Um, and obviously the whole thing about like the best friend, laying into OP, like that's his choice. I don't know exactly why he's dick riding his friend so hard, but whatever, I don't like it's kind of hard to contest those stats that he has, he's got the numbers. I don't know what else you really can say to that. Like hard to contest that, but hey. Anything else you got for this
Yeah.
one, bud?
No, that's all I have.
All right. Well, I do believe that that's all that we got for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in for our glorious return. We missed y'all. We missed each other. We're glad to be back, here. Hopefully again, we won't be going on a hiatus again anytime soon. But life's been, man, life has been throwing some goddamn curveballs the last the last couple months. It's true. It is when it rains, it pours. They really mean that. That has never been a truer statement I found at this point. But thank you guys if you stuck with us for this long. We hope you enjoyed the video again. like and comment the video down below, right around there, wherever. Uh, Again, if you can't think of anything to comment, just comment the word reunion um, here. Subscribe if you haven't already to the channel. Hit that notification bell. Share it around with any friends or people you might think might enjoy. We appreciate it. And as always, thank you guys so much, and we'll catch you next time when we dive back down to the archive. So
Bye,
long, everybody.
everybody.
Boy, we're back, baby!